welcome to Rising. We're back with another jam-packed show for you today, and I'm so excited to be joined at the desk by Jason Nichols, Senior Lecturer of African American Studies at UMD and host of the Working Class Podcast. Jason, we've had you on as a guest. It's so nice to have you here in the hosting chair.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I feel like I'm moving on up, or rising, as they say.
There we go. Dudes hosting Rising. That's what we have today. So let's get right into it. With the former president officially indicted, speculation over whether these charges will win Joe Biden re-election or backfire for Democrats, that continues to grow. According to the Wall Street Journal, Democratic operatives want Trump to be the 2024 Republican nominee because they think he'll be the easiest to beat. I think I might have heard that one before. Now, Trump's main primary threat, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, still has not announced that he is running. That did not stop, however, Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican, from throwing his endorsement behind DeSantis just hours within Trump's arraignment. His statement reads, quote, "America needs a leader who is decisive, respects the Constitution, understands policy, puts family first, and leads by inspiring. That's why I'm endorsing Ron DeSantis for president."
Meanwhile, on the other side of the aisle, controversial vaccine skeptic and activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has filed to run for president in 2024 as a Democrat. The son of Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of John F. Kennedy, RFK Jr. has faced condemnation for his crusade against vaccine mandates for children. Kennedy has long espoused theories that routine childhood vaccines cause autism.
So a little bit of I think a kind of single issue candidacy for RFK. He's widely known for the anti-vaccine stuff, even before, totally predating COVID. Marianne Williamson, obviously another person challenging Biden. So I don't know. I think, Biden is...
Yeah, I don't think he's
overwhelmingly likely, but
I don't think Biden is losing sleep over RFK Jr., particularly in a Democratic primary. I don't think he's losing sleep over Marianne Williamson. I don't think that they're going to get much coverage. I think the liberal media is pretty much all in on Joe Biden. They're not going to give them any air. And I think Marianne Williamson in particular, she didn't necessarily do herself any favors from those debates in 2020. And RFK, I mean, he's rejected by his own family, so he's going to have a tough time getting over an incumbent president.
Sure. The more interesting battle is on the Republican side, where it's so interesting. It's echoes of 2016 to hear the whole Democrats want to be up against Trump because they think he's the weakest candidate. Like, that's what Hillary Clinton thought. Hillary Clinton in 2016 absolutely wanted to run against Donald Trump, and then she lost. I think I agree probably that Trump would be a weaker GOP nominee than basically anyone else with an R next to his name. But I don't know. He still has a very rabid base of supporters. Maybe he still has an appeal to working class voters in the Rust Belt who gave him the election in 2016. Obviously, it wasn't enough in 2020. So you could say I don't know who's going to vote for him in 2024. Who didn't vote for him, are new people coming to Trump? But
yeah, see, I think that's the calculation that Democrats are making. They're saying he underperformed in 2018 in the midterms. He lost in 2020. And we overperformed in 2022.
Democrats did.
Yeah, Democrats, when, it really could have been a rout. I mean, people were talking about 90 seats.
Yeah.
And here, we're down, 5 seats or something like that. So when you're also trying to tie candidates to somebody that is, in some of these statewide races and some of these congressional races, you want to tie him to Donald Trump. And we've seen that actually work for Democrats a few times. I mean, they donated to some of these pro-Trump candidates, and it actually worked out for them. I was somebody who criticized them for that, but it seemed to work out for them.
Yeah, how can Democrats and people in the media, say that Trump is a unique and existential threat to democracy, but also we'd prefer if he's the Republican nominee for president? That's totally hypocritical.
Well, I think they think he's vulnerable, he's beatable. Yeah. I think that some of these culture war items that people like DeSantis are fighting are popular. actually. And DeSantis, though I don't think that he's a very charismatic guy, he doesn't have what Trump has. He's not an entertainer like Trump. I think Trump will beat him in a primary. But when you're looking for that sliver of persuadable voters, DeSantis has a better chance of persuading the middle than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, and also I think Donald Trump does for the left what Hillary Clinton did for the right. They get fired up. They go out and vote. You can press all those ads and people get excited and angry and it stirs up emotion. And I think that that's what Hillary Clinton did in 2016 for the right. You know, the whole, that's why they were screaming, lock her up and all of that. And I think that's what Donald Trump does for the left. And that's what the Democratic establishment is banking on.
Well, and that's why this entire indictment prosecution of Trump does feel, even if there is some thin but existing underlying rationale for bringing the charges, it does feel political because it feels in some sense calculated to make Trump a martyr and once again a sympathetic, a figure of worship among his base, fire them up to make sure he gets the nomination because Democrats want to be up against him.
Perhaps.
That's the calculus, right?
I mean, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I think some of this is that these DAs think that they actually have a case against a powerful person. And I'm not necessarily totally opposed to it because I think billionaires who fly around in jets with their name on the side should, you know, face the same justice system that a shoplifter faces. I don't think there should be any tiers to the justice system based on your class. I think a middle-class person who, you know, makes a tax error could find themselves in front of a judge. But you know, billionaires generally don't. So I'm not necessarily, you know, opposed to this from that angle. But I don't think they want to fire up because the entire Republican, you know, constituency has gotten fired up about this. It's not just Trump's base. Even his opponents, which I think is a mistake if I were advising any of them. But even his—
It's universal.
They've all coalesced around Trump, including DeSantis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, even many, I think, Democrats or liberal commentators are, you know, noting that the strength of the case is not quite what they necessarily thought. We're going to talk about that more a little bit later in the show. Before we go, I want to comment again, going back to the RFK issue. What I think might be interesting is and obviously I don't co-sign everything he's ever said about vaccines. I probably disagree with him on a lot of that stuff. But if he criticizes some of the vaccine-related mandates that Democrats foisted on many of their cities, on schools. Joe Biden obviously had the federal order for like thousands and thousands and thousands, millions of workers throughout that got struck down by the Supreme Court. So it will be interesting to see if he can use that as kind of a wedge issue. It might hurt Biden, it might damage him in some way. Obviously, it's not going to result in RFK's nomination, but it's going to be interesting to see someone, you know, running as a Democrat but criticizing Biden for, you know, COVID-related overreach. Yeah,
I think for mandates, I think that perhaps there are some people, particularly African Americans, who were not in favor of mandates. But I think when you're talking about vaccines for tetanus or vaccines for polio, which we know has saved millions upon millions of lives, I think people are going to say that's a bridge too far, and I don't think he's going to get much traction. And I think that if he were to get traction, they would just make it seem like he is a nut, you know, that's against vaccines altogether. And that's kind of where he stands. I mean, he's against vaccines. He's not just against vaccine mandates. I think you have a strong discussion there if you want to talk about vaccine mandates. But if you want to say that the polio vaccine was a negative thing and you have no evidence, strong evidence that says that it causes autism, right? I think, you know, he's not going to really gain any traction. Some people draw a distinction between vaccines and the vaccines that specifically use mRNA technology. I don't know that he draws that distinction. I'd have to look, you know, more closely what he thinks about that, which we probably will do at a later date. But we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.